Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to TowerGate, day 213, October 6, 2017, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Normally we do a fun Friday thing, but obviously with all that's going on this past week, obviously with the shooting in Las Vegas, the loss of Tom Petty, and various other things that's going on in the world, I don't feel very much in the mood for a fun Friday. Let's just get to the important topics of the day, shall we? We are learning now from the True Pundit that Uncle Bob, Mueller, and the rotten Reverend donor posse is looking into the dossier. They're looking into the dossier. The totally discredited dossier that's been written off months ago. The dossier that the Congress has been trying to get to the bottom of for quite some time, and they can't get the FBI or anyone else to come and actually talk to them without doing it behind closed session, and only if they agree not to ask certain questions. But now Uncle Bob has decided that he's going to take a look at the dossier, and apparently he's already been looking at the dossier. So basically the way I see this is that obviously in these investigations, it at least ways if they're real, maybe they're pretend, we don't know. But they're obviously members of Congress in the various committees, the Senate Judiciary, the Senate Intel, the House Oversight. They're all wanting to look into the dossier, wanting to talk to Comey's two right-hand men, his attorney and his chief of staff, wanting to get some information from them about Comey's association with the dossier. They're wanting to get Christopher Steele to talk. He doesn't want to talk. They had Glenn Simpson come in. He only agreed to come in behind in a closed session, and only if they wouldn't ask him the very questions they want to know. So it appears that what's going on here is, as we have learned, that the reasons that these congressional committees are being given for why these witnesses and information and things that they've requested, documents and things like that, the reason these things are not being given to them is because we're being told that it can't be something that would interfere with Mueller's investigation, as if he's some sort of a god and the only one who can involve himself in this investigation, and that none of these other groups, committees can involve themselves because Mueller, they don't want to mess with Mueller. No, they don't want to mess up his investigation. This is a cover. This is just simply a cover to give an excuse for why they do not want to produce the witnesses or the documents and information that the members of Congress that had these committees are looking for. It's just another game, the way the game is played in the swamp. Because what they really want to know is very simple. In these committees, they want to know who the sources were for the dossier. They want to know who funded it, who bankrolled it, that type of thing, and they want to know who leaked it. Very simple. Shouldn't be a problem getting these questions answered. It's the exact same questions that the lawyers for Mr. Guberov and soon to be the lawyers of Alpha Bank in Russia and Carter Page are going to be asking. They all want the same questions answered. Same questions we want answered. It's the very questions that they don't want to answer. It appears that the FBI, the intel agencies, the Department of Justice are giving them cover. That's what it looks like. But we do know now that the Mueller posse is and has been looking into the dossier. It's like this guy's like 6 months behind the curve. You know what I mean? This guy's way behind the curve. Maybe he should go talk to Adam Carter. Maybe he should go talk to Elizabeth Voss. Maybe he should go talk to the forensicator. Maybe he should talk to Julian Assange. There's some real sources for you. Maybe you should go over and interview Mr. Guccifer 2.0 in prison. Maybe that's what he should do. But anyway, that's what's being reported today. And as a follow-up to that, we have Chuck Ross, probably the journalist who's covering this story the closest, who, of course, writes for the Daily Caller. And he basically says that Mueller's team did meet with Christopher Steele during the summer. Sometime over the summer, they did meet with Christopher Steele. I'm sure they went to him over in London. And it's looking more and more like the FBI and the CIA took the dossier more seriously than previously admitted. If you remember, when John Brennan of the CIA, Hillary's puppet, her bitch, when Mr. Brennan was asked about this during the hearings by Trey Gowdy and a couple of other people, and he was questioned about the dossier, he basically said that the CIA didn't rely on it, and he acted as if the dossier, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, the dossier, I've heard of that. Yeah, we just didn't really rely on that at all. No, yeah, don't know much about it. So he played it off. He played it off like, oh, we don't have any, have no much to do with it. And you know that the CIA had to be all over the dossier, had to be all over it. If they're not, they're horribly incompetent. Horribly incompetent. But we, of course, know that's not true. John Brennan knows a lot about the dossier, was probably deeply involved in the procurement of the dossier. Absolutely. Well, following up again on Spain and Catalonia, things are unfortunately coming to a head there. We have a Mexican standoff because neither side is backing away. And it looks like it's going to come down to Monday. This coming Monday, this leader of this main party in Catalonia is going to declare independence. And of course, Spain's saying they're going to put it down. You have the EU telling Spain that they should use as much force as necessary to put it down, including brute police force to put it down. Because neither side is backing down. And one member of the parliament there said that they're headed for civil war, I think at the very least, and that there's no apparent solution to the problem now. Well, I think that there is a solution to the problem that's a halfway point. Spain is going to have to allow Catalonia to have some sovereignty. They're going to have to allow the Catalonian people to come up with their own immigration policy that they think is a good policy for their country. They're going to be able to defend their borders and their interest, their national interest. But at this point, I agree. I watched some of the video. It's brutal what's going on over there. It's hard to believe this is a Western democracy. But it should also be noted that this is not the only independence revolutionary type movement that's brewing in Europe right now. There's 6 or 7 other independent movements, and of course we're watching very closely the movement, the political movement that's happening right now in Austria. You could see a very similar situation. I don't know that they'll take this particular route because they are the Germans. They're quite a bit more passive. But clearly you can see there's a division happening now between Austria and Germany. And you can see this in other places in the EU. And it's basically unraveling is what is happening. It's unraveling. It's like a slow motion train wreck. You're watching it. It's happening at slow motion, but it is happening. And we'll have to find out. When Monday comes, we'll see what happens. But, when you have two sides, neither are willing to back down. I think they're beyond the point of discussion at this point. I think now it's just mainly they're ready to fight. I don't think there's much room for talk right now. They may have to fight for a little while before they talk. But obviously this is not good. And this could erupt and be a major, major hotspot. I think it would be getting a lot more media attention if it weren't for all the other things that are happening right now. But certainly in Europe, it's getting a lot of attention, and the EU is paying very close attention. Well, the Rotten Reverend. The Rotten Reverend is now blaming the GOP and the NRA for the Vegas shooting. By the way, Reverend, the bump stock, which of course is garbage. No serious shooters I know take the bump stock very seriously. I don't think the bump stock had anything to do with anything in this Vegas shooting. But since they're wanting to throw it out there and Hillary's wanting to harp on it, despite the fact that she doesn't even know what the hell a bump stock is or how it works or anything else. She knows nothing about firearms. I'm absolutely certain of that. But just so you know, Rotten Reverend, the bump stock was actually approved by the federal government in 2010 when Obama was the president and you, Rotten Reverend, were the Secretary of State. But she's out there blaming the GOP and the NRA for the Vegas shooting. Now, it probably has a lot more to do with a bunch of other things, and if it's just what we see on the surface, then the number one people to blame would be the liberal media, who spent the last year radicalizing and empowering these far left-wing extremists by throwing out all their anti-Trump propaganda, associating him with Hitler and fascism and everything else in the world, being a racist and all these other things. Now that they've revved these people up, and we saw the shooting in Virginia with Steve Scalise, who thankfully now is out of the hospital. Fortunately, we had someone around with a gun to take that guy out. But at this point, it's just the insanity of the pathological, lying, greedy, criminal Reverend Rotten Clinton. It just never seems to end. Every single day. This, I believe she was making this statement last night on Jimmy Kimmel, who's not funny at all. By the way, Jimmy Kimmel has 4 or 5 personal bodyguards with weapons. Jimmy Kimmel has bodyguards with weapons. But he and the Rotten Reverend, who's armed security, armed to the teeth, but they don't want you to have protection. No, they do not. They want you disarmed. They want you disarmed. Speaking of the Rotten Reverend, Hollywood producer, as some of you may have heard this story, big-time Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein is now facing a string of accusations of sexual harassment over a period of many, many years. Now, of course, Mr. Weinstein was a major contributor to the Rotten Reverend. In her recent presidential run, he donated over $1.5 million through various fundraising activities he was involved in, presenting her with checks totaling over $1.5 million, as well as having a personal fundraiser for her at his home, where he invited lots of his rich friends, and they all wrote checks for the Rotten Reverend. So the question is, will the Rotten Reverend disavow Mr. Weinstein, now that he's been proven to be a serial sexual harasser? Of course, she's been married to a man who's a serial sexual harasser, accused rapist, and I've never heard her disavow Slick Willie. What a lying, two-faced, pathological, criminal, greedy scumball the Rotten Reverend is. Still waiting for her preacher's license to come in the mail so she can shake down a bunch of Christians. Many of them will fall for it. ISIS triples down on their statement that the Vegas shooter was a convert and was acting on behalf of the jihad. Well, taking that into consideration with the statement that we talked about that was released by the CIA yesterday, the guy who I guess is running this operation for the CIA regarding this shooting, and he was talking about having intel and dealing with this Las Vegas issue not just across the United States but around the world. Why would you be associating intelligence information with this shooting in Las Vegas? What's that all about? Maybe this guy did get radicalized by ISIS. Who knows? Anything is possible with the radical leftists. Spaghetti-o. Top House Democrat Representative Linda Sanchez is now calling for Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, and James Clyburn to go. That's the entire Democratic leadership in the House. Now, of course, Ms. Sanchez would be in the position that she would be one of those people moving into one of those positions, probably the position that Steny Hoyer has, would probably be where she would slide in. So obviously she has a personal interest here, but what she's actually saying is that they no longer have any confidence in Pelosi, Hoyer, or Mr. Clyburn, and that they all need to go. They want fresh blood. They want new skin in the game. She mentions that they're all in their 70s. Yeah, some of them are closing in on their 80s. And yeah, they're completely nuts, out of their minds. It just shows you that there's more dissension in the Democratic Party than what's being reported in the corporate media. There's a lot of problems in that party, and they're not going away, and they're not getting solved, because Pelosi will die in that position unless they can force her out. These people don't resign and give up that power. Never. They die in that office. Senator Magoo should have resigned his position. He's probably got less than a year to live. He should be focused on other things. He should be spending time with his family, going through his cancer treatment. Should be doing other things. Should actually be going to confession. Should actually be called in front of a grand jury. He should actually be put on a lie detector. He probably should be waterboarded. We should find out what he knows before he kicks the can. But you can see that Senator Magoo, he could be completely stone cold crazy, completely have lost his mind, and he will not resign. He will die in that position because these people will not give up that power. Never. You have to take them out. This is a scary story. Trump, I don't know if he was joking or if he's serious, but he said that Trump says that they need to wipe out the debt in Puerto Rico. Well, that's a hell of a lot of debt. Wipe out the debt in Puerto Rico. What are you saying? What is he saying there? Wipe out the debt in Puerto Rico. Who's holding that debt? That would be Wall Street. Whoa, that would crush Wall Street. It wouldn't bankrupt Wall Street, but it would sure upset a lot of people. These are some nasty people to be dealing with right here now. These are some very, very nasty people, the worst of the worst. And they're connected to everything and everyone in the deep state, the intelligence agencies, the military defense industry, everything and everyone. Soros, the whole 9 yards, the New World Order, the whole ticket, man. When you're talking about the Wall Street heads of the big 5 Wall Street banks, these guys are connected. Remember, there was only 2 men who could walk into the Obama White House unannounced without making an appointment. Only 2 men who, when they walked in, Obama would kick out any world leader he happened to be with when they showed up. He put those guys in the guest room and invite these 2 gentlemen into his office immediately. And those 2 men were Jamie Dimon of Goldman Sachs and what's his name from J.P. Morgan. Those are the only 2 guys. When they call, Obama puts you on hold. He could be the world leader of any country. It could be during a crisis. Anything could be happening. When those 2 guys called, Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan, they got taken care of immediately. These are powerful, powerful men connected to everything. To say that you want to wipe out the debt in Puerto Rico means that you're just basically saying we're going to stiff Wall Street with all that debt. That's a very, very ballsy move on the part of the president. Hey, more power to you. Go ahead and try that. We'll see how that goes. Talk about a revolt, man. Whew, goodness gracious. I don't know how that would work out. That's tricky territory. Maybe he knows something we don't know. Maybe he's just sending them a little bit of a message. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe Trump's reminding them that he's got some cards to play too, because, we all know that they certainly don't like him, didn't support him, and they might be working to undermine him. This might be his way of just reminding them that he's got a few moves he can make to make them very uncomfortable and far less wealthy. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars when you're talking about wiping out the Puerto Rico's debt. Well, the rumors are swirling that the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, the neocon, may be getting close to being shown the door. This is very good news, friends. Calling off for cutting off Trump from conservative friends, conservative news and things and such. And of course, he didn't tell Trump about this Assange-Rohrabacher meeting. Didn't tell him anything about that. Trump learned that when he was asked that question by a reporter. So Trump's learning that John Kelly is acting as a gatekeeper, keeping him from getting information that he would probably like to have. And it seems that it's being reported anyway that he's acting like a gatekeeper and is even keeping Trump from watching conservative news programming, taking calls from conservative friends in the media and things and such. Basically keeping Trump surrounded by other neocons not allowing him to have conversations or get information or what have you from people who they don't approve of. And of course, we'd be talking about John Kelly and those around him, the neocon. And I do think that the very best thing that could happen right now in the short term is Kelly, the neocon, along with H.R. McMaster, also a neocon, deep state guys, both of them establishment, swamp rats, both of them. Faster they go, the happier I'll be. Just don't replace them with someone as bad as they are. So this is good news. Hopefully we'll hear about John Kelly being shown the door very, very soon. I think the only reason that Trump really wanted to bring Kelly in the first place is because, and he did have to get a handle on the leaks, and to some extent he has gotten a handle on some of the leaks, but not all of them. But certainly he did get a handle on some of the leaks coming out from within the actual working group within the White House, which was where a lot of these leaks were coming from. And may have been Reince Priebus. It's hard to know because they've let go of so many people, but certainly always believe that Reince Priebus was one of the guys leaking things. But since John Kelly's come in there, there's a lot less leaks, but he's also preventing information from getting to Trump that Trump would like to get. House of Representatives Homeland Security panel has now approved billions. I believe that the number is actually $11.5 billion or something like that, $11.3 billion, to fund the border wall. Trump's going to get his wall. I keep telling you this. Trump is going to build his wall. So now they've opened up and approved the funding through the committee to begin funding the border wall. And this is like the third time it's been done. And they're doing it through the Homeland Security funding is how they're doing it. They're moving funds into Homeland Security and using those funds to begin the building of the border wall. So the Democrats and the Never Trump Republicans and the No Wall Republicans, such as Lindsey Graham and McCain and all the rest, they can cry, bitch, moan, and complain all they want. But Trump is going to build the damn wall, and he's going to go around them, under them, through them, over it, whatever he has to do. And he's getting his wall. Take it to the bank. It's a promise he made, and it's a promise he is going to keep. Kind of a funny story here. We have Black Lives Matter shutting down an ACLU speech. I don't know if you heard about this, but this is, I mean, you want to talk about the left eating itself. I mean, you can't get any more left-wing than the ACLU. About, 10% of the time they actually do, are defending something good, but most of the time they're on the wrong side of history and the issue, but every now and then they get it right. But anyway, you don't think about, the ACLU has always been, literally like super important to the left and always been there for leftist causes, leftist politicians, leftist movements, and everything else. They certainly have the cred, the leftist cred, many, many years, decades of the leftist credibility going for them. So you have to imagine how shocked and horrified the speaker had to be when he sees BLM show up and shout him down and drive him out and end the speech. Has to end the speech. The speaker, who was there on behalf of the ACLU, he must have gone backstage and said, "What in the world's going on? We're on their side. Aren't we on the same team? Don't they know we're on the same team?" No, they don't. These people are dumber than a sock. They don't understand any of this. They don't know what the ACLU is. They just know that it's someone from an organization that's white, and therefore they got to go protest them, because if it's a white male, he's obviously a fascist. He's obviously a racist. So here we have the left eating themselves. Black Lives Matter protesters shouting down and ending prematurely the speech of the ACLU. And the speech he was giving was a speech to defend free speech. He's driven off stage by people protesting the speech based on the content of the speech that he's giving. He has to be scratching his head and going, just like Nancy Pelosi when she got shouted down by the same group of people. It's the left eating themselves. They have radicalized their own base to the point where now their base has turned on them. Has turned on them. Absolutely extraordinary. Well, before I go, just a few quick updates on the Las Vegas shooting. Some things to cover over the last couple hours. I did the video really late last night, so there's not a whole lot new, but I'm really enjoying watching the press conference of the sheriff. Of course, the FBI is funneling tons of disinformation and stuff like that out through the corporate media. We'll look at some of that as we move along, but just focusing on some of the things in the press conference, because the sheriff is coming out and saying exactly what I said when I did my first video. Number one, this guy is not who he didn't snap. No, he didn't snap. This guy has been putting on a fake persona for years and years and years, and even fooling, probably, if we can believe his own brother, people like that. It's a fake persona. This guy is into a lot of dark stuff. And also I said that he had to have had other people involved, had to have some help. So let's look at some more factors. Let's see. We learn now that over 200 rounds were fired at the Mandalay the Mandalay-based security guard who had come up there and was standing out in front of the door. So I guess they found 200 rounds in the door. So and that security guard was wounded but not killed. He survived 200 shots. Of course, they had to go through a door first, and those are probably pretty thick steel doors. There were several weapons that they're now saying weapons jammed during the shooting. Maybe they've got other audio that I didn't hear, but none of the audio I heard sounded like weapons jamming to me. All the firing I heard, I didn't hear any jamming, but maybe they've got better audio than I've got. They said that the gunman actually had an escape strategy. He actually was planning on getting out of there. Well, of course, we know he had 50 pounds of plastic explosives. Maybe he was planning on getting into like a closet or something and blowing the floor and then escaping in the chaos of the explosion. He had 50 pounds of plastic explosive. We'll get back to that in a minute. The sheriff says they still have no clear motive. And if the FBI has got one, they're not telling them. Apparently, they have received no information at the sheriff's department on the interview that was done with his girlfriend. The FBI is not sharing very much with the sheriff's department, which shouldn't surprise any of us, because the sheriff appears to be trying to get to the truth, and the FBI is involved in a cover-up. There was a note, but they're saying it was not a suicide note, but it was a note that showed implicating him in the crime. So it's kind of strange. They're not telling us what the note said. They're saying there was a note left, but it wasn't like a suicide note, but that it was a note that strongly implicates the gunman. Maybe we'll get to learn what's in that note. They're also telling us now that there was nothing on the video cameras. He set up all these video cameras, set up this video cam system and stuff. We were first told that he videotaped the whole event. Now we're being told, oh no, actually he didn't turn the video cameras on. There's nothing on him. No, he didn't record anything. No, he brought them up there, brought the camera up there, brought the everything up there, but he didn't actually record himself. That's what we're now being told. So as far as getting anything from the video, doesn't look like we're going to get anything, because they're telling us now that he didn't actually record anything. If you believe that. I don't. He purchased 33 weapons in October of 2016. Alone. 33 weapons in 1 month, and apparently a lot of the times he paid cash. Another sign that there's a lot more going on here. He had massive amounts of weapons and ammos in both of his homes in Reno and Mesquite. Large amounts of weapons and ammo in both homes. Not to mention they found over 23, 28 in the hotel. Which is more good information. All indications are, according to the sheriff, that the shooter had assistance. No shit. I figured that one out in a couple of hours. Of course he had assistance. Come on. Come on. So consider the following factors. The shooting time, we're told, was 10 minutes. There were 600 plus casualties. The math tells us that that is a casualty rate of 60 casualties per minute, which meant that he had to hit one person every second for 10 minutes straight. That would require 240 rounds per minute in a 20 to 30 round magazine. Now, if you are a really, really professional like Navy SEAL or Special Forces or something like that, and you practiced all the time, you could probably do 240 in a semi-auto with a 20 or 30 round clip. But not an average guy. An average guy may do 160 to 180. A standard AR, Colt AR-15, would fail from metal fatigue if you attempted to squeeze off this many rounds in that period of time. So it could not have been a standard AR. And also, there should be one hell of a lot of brass, hot brass. And this here is my final question of the video. Have any of you looked at any video? I've looked at as much video as I can find, and the pictures that they have actually released showing the inside of the hotel room. I didn't see any brass. Anyone who's fired a semi-automatic weapon knows that as the round goes out the barrel, the brass goes out the side. There should be 600 pieces of brass, shell casings, somewhere. I didn't see any. Where are the shell casings? Where's the brass? Where is the brass? They're not in the photos. Can anyone tell me where is the brass? And keep in mind, I don't know how many of you have ever fired semi-automatic weapons. I've fired hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds, many magazines worth of semi-automatic AR-15 and AK-47, Chinese and Russian-made AK-47s. We used to go down to the river and shoot them all the time, back when my brother-in-law lived in Hamilton. But now he lives in Indiana, so we don't get together as much. But whenever I go out there, we do a little shooting. I've fired many clips through AKs and AR-15. And you know, when that hot brass comes out, I don't know how many of you have you ever had a piece of hot brass go into your sleeve, but when I was in the Army, it happened to me. We were firing on a range, and I had my sleeve was kind of loose right here and hanging down, and I had a piece of hot brass go into my sleeve. Man, it left a big old red mark, which turned into like a scab, and actually, you know, an actual scab and stuff. It burned, and it stung like son of a bitch. It hurts. Should have been a lot of hot brass flying around that room. I looked at all them pictures. They're showing the weapons. They're showing some other pictures in the room. They even showed this guy with his, you know, bloodied face, one eye open, one eye closed. He looks, you know, like you look when you've just been shot in the head or something. What they didn't show me was the brass. There should be at least 600 rounds, probably more, 600 rounds of spent casings somewhere. Where are the shell casings? Where's the brass? If you can find it, let me know. Put it in the comment section. I'd love to know. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been TowerGate, Friday, Day 213, October 6, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you on Saturday evening. You all be safe. Goodbye.